children of the internet. This is Howard Lindzon. You are live on Trends with Friends, a special year-end edition. That is my third child, the Peloton in the background. I am dialing in today from Coronado, just the Tuscany of California or America. Don't get any ideas, everybody. There's nothing available. It's full. Coronado is full. The only place in America where you can still get a jaywalking ticket and kind of thank the policeman for doing that, right? It's they're compared to everywhere else in the United States, you appreciate the policeman here and paying your taxes. So year-end show. Let's go around the horn. This is really a fun special edition show where we're going to talk about trends in degeneracy, AI, and one of our favorite subjects, email. Phil, am I already missing something? I just want to...
No, you reminded me of the degeneracy thing. That was a good thing.
Yeah. So around the horn, Michael Parekh. Say hello, Michael. Michael is dialing in from Houston. Ben is trying to annul him. Mike is dialing in from Houston. We call him the AI Whisperer. 20 years plus at Goldman Sachs running institutional research, only to drop off the world because he had many caves and dungeons to decorate, and came out of hibernation with AI and is our AI whisperer. And then joining him is JC took the week off. He's probably
he's in Disney.
He's at Disney. Oh, poor
a lot
bastard.
of wine.
Poor bastard. He's in Disney. That's, again, kids, a reminder. Having kids has consequences. So JC's in Disney. We will have no charts today. You can hear the quiet applause in the background. Coming today, straight out of space, dropped into a hoodie, Phil Pearlman. Phil, our doctor, our shrink. And then two special guests today. First, we're going to introduce Ben Cahn. Ben, hello, from LA. Ben is a actor. I don't know. What are you?
I wouldn't call myself that.
I agree, by the way.
I'm a trader and a podcaster.
You're a trader and a podcaster.
Yeah.
Fucking hysterical. Ben has created with us the first original content show on Stock Twits called the Friday Rip, or I don't know. It's the
Weekend Rip.
Whatever. Okay, promote your own shit here. The Weekend Rip with Ben Cahn and Emil. So goddamn funny. And here's a flipperoo story. We've had many flippenings. Ben came to my house in Coronado. So Ben, you've been in this house, right?
Yes, I have. It was very hot. Your air conditioning wasn't working.
Was that necessary? Are you calling me cheap?
No, it wasn't your fault. You couldn't help. I mean, you even said so. You're like, I'm trying to get someone to come out and fix this. And
okay, I don't remember stuff because of the Ambien, but I believe you. I don't think you're a liar. So anyways, Ben came down to my house. I sweated him. That's what I do to people when they come to pitch me. I make them sweat. And now you know Ben. Anyways, Ben came down to pitch me what he thought was a great idea. And I pulled the old switcheroo and said, Ben, you'd be perfect doing a internet show for Stock Twits' audience. So created 3 shows. It's just hysterical.
Thank you.
They take the piss out of the market and everything degenerate because they're living in that world. Ben Cahn joins us. And then finally, last but not least, Tyler Denk, founder, CEO of Beehive. Full disclosure, social leverage, was the lead seed investor in that company. He's raised a Series B. He's handsome. He just made the cover of Inc. Do we have an applause? Do we have that cover?
We can pull it up. I can't pull it up. There we go.
Listen, note to Tyler Denk, you go in the ocean with shorts on, not pants.
I'm just
that makes
a yes
me nervous.
They suggested to go in with the water. I said yes.
That feels like
anything for the shoot.
That's almost like you're paying customers to come to you, that the fact that you pay to you wear pants in the water. But I'm a little nervous.
It's how I would go surfing.
Mm-hmm. And how much touch-up was done in this photo? Because I've seen you without a shirt, and this doesn't look like it's you.
I look a little bulky there, don't I?
Yeah.
I put on a few pounds.
Phil has a couple tips for you.
I haven't seen the raw photos, but I'm happy with how it came out. I didn't think the jeans would be such a topic of conversation online, but it has added to the virality of the post. So happy to be here, and also thankful that you remember the name of my company. So 1 for
Yes.
2 in introducing.
Can't
guests.
spell it, but I know it. Beehive. What? Just
I
quickly before we go
texted it to
Phil.
him.
What does the name mean again? Like just quickly, and then we'll get it to Phil.
No real meaning, honestly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just
Kind of like
we'll
StockTwits.
Yeah, we'll keep rolling.
The hive mind.
Okay, Phil. Back to you. We got a lot to talk about. So Phil, run us through the show.
Okay, so let's get right to it. First of all, Ben, it's just so great seeing you and having you on the program. You're like dude. It's just great. I love you, man. I know him from way back, and he's just a beautiful guy and hilarious. It's like a young Chevy Chase.
Oh, gee whiz.
Yeah,
Dude, have you ever heard that before?
I like it.
Yeah, I think my mom has said that kind of thing.
Dude, that's a
but
high
yeah,
praise.
Phil, you real fast. You once gave me some sound financial advice that I stupidly didn't follow. I had just come into a lot of money, and SPY was at 180, and you said take half of it, put it in SPY, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do something, and I did something else. But anyway, sorry. Continue. That was a long time ago.
Wow, I didn't know you guys knew each other.
Yeah.
Forever.
And where's
Okay,
SPY
so
now? Where's SPY now?
Oh, I don't know. 5,000, 6,000. Who 604?
600. It's like a 4-bagger from there.
That sounds like very Phil advice. I follow Phil's advice, by the way, for the record. All right, Phil.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. So Tyler, just great honor having you as well. Big desk energy, the aesthetic, dude, is awesome. Like that,
Appreciate it.
The minute you go there, it's great. It's like the old school internet, Windows 95, whatever. It's just beautiful. But anyway, oh yeah, absolutely. What we want to do is we want to talk about, you wrote a piece very recently, Death by 1,000 Substacks. And this is super powerful coming from guys, me and Howard were around at the genesis of Web 2 when anybody on the internet with a good thinking and some persistence could begin to go on the internet, create a WordPress blog or a blogger blog even, or get on
audio
Facebook,
blog,
audio, right. And really, put their best thoughts down and get them out there in the world, And so you are moving that forward and talking about an old dilemma, but you're talking about it in terms of 2025, really. So maybe just talk to us a little bit about Death by 1,000 Substacks and what's going on here, and why you're bringing this up. Why you're bringing this up now?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things. One, as you've seen this resurgence in email newsletters, it's kind of a diversification away from the centralization of social channels and dependence on Google search, which is being disrupted by AI, or whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, where they're deprioritizing links to different publishers. And so what we've seen for decades, really, but maybe going back to 2018 with Facebook, when they convinced all of the publishers to build their audience on Facebook, get tens of thousands of likes, and when they would post content, it would be in the feeds for readers and users to see and click through on their website. And then Facebook made a business decision to pivot their strategy, not prioritize those types of links, and all of those publishers got decimated. Same with the pivot to video and everything else. And so, as you've seen in the past few years, whether it's the Free Press, Morning Brew, The Hustle, Axios, Politico, newsletter first media companies are having a huge resurgence because they own the distribution, they own the audience, they own the ability to write something and distribute it and get it directly in front of their audience. And that is kind of like the bull case for email newsletters, which kind of falls with like this ownership and decentralization. And then, so we have launched and we have tons of successful newsletters. We have the StockTwits newsletter, we have Time Magazine, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, we have Blockworks. We have tons of huge publications who are doubling down and emphasizing email newsletters. And so the piece that I wrote about Substack, one is a power of like just having my own audience. I was able to send what I thought was a compelling case to 70,000 people directly, which is something without an email newsletter, I would have never had the distribution on Twitter or LinkedIn to be able to communicate that. But two, what Substack has done in accepting their $650 million valuation and trying to justify what is a reasonable outcome for them is to build the next social network. And so they're now competing with Twitter, with Blue Sky, with Threads. And the incentives of a social network is totally different from the incentives of just building a successful publishing tool for email newsletters. Their goal is to have people subscribe to as many people as possible, diluting their audience. They own the distribution, they own the style. And so they do a lot of malicious dark patterns to be able to juice their numbers and build the social network, which comes at the expense of the publishers. And I don't think that has been fully seen or called out to the extent that I've been able to see it as someone who's building a similar business. I know the financials of the business. I understand how they are trying to grow and how they're prioritizing the user growth. And then I see the misalignment of incentives and where eventually I think publishers are going to end up getting burned. And that's more or less just the thesis of the piece.
Can I quickly chime in, Phil? Let me explain this, and Michael, you can chime in, and maybe Ben as an actual end user potentially. But this is that cycle of Web 2, Phil, where like guys like Fred Wilson originally, the people that understood network effects early, and again, network effects was something no one had really talked about, but then you had, and they began before AWS, and the talk of network effects started in the BlackBerry era, and ended in probably 2020 with COVID, when everybody actually had to use these products all at once and got misinformation, right? So I consider 2020 the peak network effects, because when it was meant to work, like the emergency broadcast system before it fucking let everybody down and sent us down Pizzagate, blah 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 blah, to this day, right? To the Columbia and the wokeness. So network effects was a magic wand created by tech that Twitter started this network effects thing, and everybody went down the follower path. It ended, obviously. No one knows when the music's going to end, with companies like Substack raising money at ridiculous valuations because of said network effects. But what they had forgot was the user already knew that they were the product, or the user was being used as the product. And the original rug pull is Facebook with all these changes. The networks that we thought were great were the original rug pulls, right? You went all in, you wrote for Facebook, you do your comedy for YouTube, you do your newsletter for Substack. They pay you. They don't tell you that they've paid the first couple hundred major newsletter writers to go to Substack. So it's kind of like fake network effects anyways. So now we have the unbundling of this network effects, which happens to be also a factor of cap tables. Once network effects gets unwound, it takes a while. And Substack and many companies are caught up in the fact that they were capitalized and cap tabled for a world that doesn't exist anymore, which creates a real problems for those companies. It's not just Substack. It's Elon Musk. Now, the difference between Elon Musk is he can bail himself out of this with XAI. Most 99.99% of other founders are going to be stuck with these terrible cap tables written at a time that doesn't exist anymore. So Tyler, when we originally sat down and talked to you, that was kind of our discussion with you 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I would even argue that Substack's one of our main competitors. We're building advanced email analytic type tools that we're serving the enterprise, right? Like Time Magazine would never go to Substack to publish their newsletter. We're talking to the largest publications in the world who are moving their email experience to use our pipes, our growth tools, our data analytics. So we aren't one-to-one, but we do overlap with a lot of these writers and journalists. We just launched a media collective initiative where we're helping support the legal costs, the health insurance, and some other support for these independent journalists to be able to support their work so they can focus on breaking stories, which is actually coincidentally where Substack started and have since kind of pivoted into this social network. I think, as you alluded to with Facebook and Twitter, the thing that keeps recurring is that the platforms always win at the end of the day, and it typically comes at the expense of the publishers who had built up those networks. And so in a way, you can view Substack as like a brilliant acquisition strategy to build a social network rather than building one by one they paid the largest writers who already have a massive audience to move onto their platform, which is a way to bootstrap the network with their audience. But what we've seen over the past few years is they're slowly extracting those audiences of their users to download their app and take over the distribution for them. And once your reader has downloaded the Substack app, that's no longer your reader. That is Substack's user to be able to communicate and contact whenever they want, to be able to push notifications, and all notifications and all roads go to those Substack accounts who actually generate revenue for them, which are the top 1%.
And I will chime in here with, this is not us just talking. Go look at the public markets. If someone can pull up Klaviyo, KVYO, okay, you won't hear anybody talk about this stock. It went public in silence in 2022. Why? Because maybe the name, maybe it was just not sexy. It's an email marketing company, a modern email marketing company, which is kind of a North Star for where where Beehive can go. Which is breaking out to all-time highs every day. No one follows it. KVYO, it's an $11 billion company that is, kind of a North Star for companies like Tyler that have the freedom and optionality in their cap table and how they structure the business to go challenge what are the real winners of this. Klaviyo makes your Shopify store better. Klaviyo helps creators truly be creators and own their own domain, and that's what Beehive does. So while everybody talks
Klaviyo is
about
very e-commerce, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a laundry list of successful email companies, whether it's MailChimp that got acquired for $13 billion a few years ago. There's Campaign Monitor, SailThrough, ActiveCampaign, Aweber. There are dozens of multi-billion-dollar companies in the email space. Substack is pivoting more into a social network. It's really not the direction that we're moving in. But yeah.
Okay.
Was WordPress kind of asleep at the wheel for not building out their sort of the newsletter side more robustly? Michael, you're next. Sorry.
Yeah. They actually reached out. I connected to their team probably 2 years ago, coincidentally a month before they launched their newsletter product. I don't know a single person using their newsletter product.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, they own so much of the internet, and they had the central CMS of where these writers were actually going to create content. The next logical step was to help them distribute it via email. I don't know where they are with their latest efforts there.
Michael.
No, I think, Tyler, thanks for being on the show. And I truly enjoyed your post, the Death by 1,000 Substacks. I read it twice. It's got a lot of key points in there. A couple of points. Number one, you're making a good point on the core connection to some of the perennial foundations of the internet. Email, for instance, right? I mean, email, even 50 years later of online, it's the critical pivot linchpin to how we connect to the world, whether as individuals or organizations. Can you talk a little bit about your roadmap for Beehive? I like the way you've constructed the product. Just a little bit more on some of the things that you think can be built on top of the email and the direct distribution, whether it's organizationally or as individuals. Obviously, podcasts are big, videos are big, all of that.
Yeah, I think in what I would call the creator economy space, we're actually going to see a ton of consolidation over the next few years. So you're going to see, I'd break out the main categories as newsletter, website, link in bio, community, and maybe courses as well. I think you've already started to see from Circle, and I'm blanking on the other name, they're community-based platforms that just launched newsletter capabilities. We started as newsletter first, and we actually acquired an AI website builder earlier this year. And so we're kind of merging into very powerful website capabilities, which is actually set to go live in January. And next beyond that would be link in bio, podcast, courses and community not far from there. So I actually do think we're going to start to see this convergence of whether it's acquisition or just these companies starting to launch competing profiles or feature sets to target these different niches. I don't think that we're going to have 10 link in bio tools, 10 website tools, 10 newsletter tools. I think we're going to see some start to emerge as dominant.
I just had a quick follow-up on the website piece, because Google was in the website business and they just got rid of it to Squarespace, I think. And Google and this business of domain names is critical to the foundation of the web. and it's been forgotten. Almost everybody has not done that well. It's so geeky to take whatever you have, whatever presence you have on the internet, and unless you have a IT staff to match your domain name to it, etc. How do you think about making it as simple and straightforward to how you're going with this? Because that's been the holy grail of any of the billions of people on the internet. I want my space. Remember MySpace? That was that was the idea. A place where no one can take it away from me, no one can come in, and websites ended up being a domain name ended up being a whole separate thing that's extraordinarily tough even to this day to manage for most mortals.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question directly of what you asked previously, what I'm most excited about on the roadmap is our website capabilities. Whether it's Squarespace, Wix, there's a Webflow, Framer, multi-billion-dollar companies that are, some do websites better than others, but there's a huge power in having all of the solutions under one roof, to the extent that people are willing to accept a slightly lesser experience to have one login and all of their data and all of their touch points with their customers in a single platform. I don't think that our solution is actually going to be a step below the competition. We've been working for 8 months on this new website builder, and I think it will actually compete with the WordPress, Webflow, Framers of the world. And I think that actually flips the narrative of what Beehive is entirely on its head, because to date, we have been a newsletter platform that offers a website out of the box that's mediocre at best. Where we're going to be in January is a website that can customize in any which direction you want, fully flexible. You can build courses on it. You can build whatever you really want. And there's the best in class newsletter platform to boot on the back of that. So you have the ability to send traffic to your space online, and then to communicate with your customers via email. We actually have the best suite of tools for email as well. So I actually think January is going to be a pretty big inflection point for the business, where we can flip the model entirely on its head.
The other thing, Michael, you and I have talked about it privately. We'll publicly announce it sometime late January, but starts with some Beehive. We've come to the age where it's not just the creator economy; it's the creative plumbing, creative internet. Whereas the internet is set, right? Like, we can hate about it. Like there's people you can read that just are losing their mind, right? It's a kind of like, it's a new form of wokeism in a many way. It's people that hate the internet because of the way it's structured, right? And that's going to drive people insane. Or you can get creative with what we have, right? Like, you could never get creative around television broadcasting, but at least you can get creative around the internet, which is new forms of plumbing, new forms of wiring, right? And I think what you'll see, and kudos to the Free Press, Barry Weiss, for doing this, but not enough people are recognizing true creators on the economy and how they're hacking together plumbing and wiring and distribution to grow their businesses, right? Creators can't just make good content. They actually have to creatively get distribution. And so I think what you're going to see now in an area of high interest rates, people talked about lack of IPOs and lack of acquisitions. Well, 6% interest rates are going to create an environment for many more acquisitions, because those companies that were set up to be features that were getting funded for 10 years at YC and all these other places, and by Andreessen, are going to be in market begging for a home, much like Tyler being able to buy a YC AI website builder, which in a 0% interest rate environment seemed like, hey, we'll keep raising money and build a behemoth. Like, we'll copy the Airbnb model, we'll copy the Twitter model, but that market just closed. What Tyler's going to need, and what a lot of great CEOs with 30 to 50 million in revenue are going to have to learn how to do, is corporate dev. And that should start out very early in a company's career, like Tyler did, testing, integrating startups, buying startups, because the creator economy also applies to the new CEOs. I think we went through Web 2, and the only creative CEO was Mark Zuckerberg, by buying Instagram and by buying WhatsApp. Very few Web 2.0 companies executed like a Microsoft did, or like a Benioff did. So anyways, this is why I wanted what Tyler's doing, what Emil's doing, what the creators are doing is this, and no one wants to realize it, is they're rewiring the internet that we were given, right? The Magnificent Seven are not going away. It's now what, the Magnificent Eight. Sherwood at Robinhood calls it Batman, BAATMA. I don't know. They've got a new acronym for Broadcom now in there. So that ain't going away. Companies will get added to being these planetary size companies. And it's up for the Tyler Denks of the world that have unique actual businesses, not just products, to bundle themselves up to get to the next level in that game of the markets. And so by picking the right North Stars, like following the Klavios and following the companies that are actually building great businesses, today's startups it can really build, for this next economy. But all right, Phil, what do we got next?
So I have one more question for Tyler. So I'm just a really dumb guy. I got a website. I got a newsletter that I switched over from Substack to Beehive. Beautiful thing that I did. And I'm going to rebuild my website. Like, I'm growing. I got my own business. And right now there's a WordPress economy, right? I can go find somebody. I know a couple people already. My wife has a Squarespace. I can go find a Squarespace guy to build my wife's website. I can go find a WordPress guy. You know where I'm going with this. How long? So you guys are relaunching in January. Sometime early next year, I'm rebuilding my website. Do I just wait? Do I wait till February or March? And then, these on Upwork or wherever, Beehive devs start to pop up and they'll be able to help me, because I could never do it myself. You guys are making it so easy. I set it up myself. I even figured out how to get it. So it's a philpearlman.com/prime cuts or whatever. But I'm never going to be able to set up the website by myself. So how long?
The goal is that it is actually simple enough that Phil can set up his own website. But in this use case, we already have a lot of like open source, like on Fiverr and everywhere, these different agencies and dev shops that know how to specialize in the Beehive software. So that exists now. But also to your point,
sick. I mean, that's a community that you guys are seeding and fostering through the application.
And part of this build that we're doing now with the website builder is to facilitate being able to buy and sell templates in the marketplace as well. So going further to the Klaviyo and Shopify model, where Howard could go in, build his favorite website template, and then sell it for $25, and can have any user within the Beehive ecosystem paying Howard directly. So we're starting to do a little bit more of like a platform play and ecosystem effects there. The other thing I'd call out too is where we are very not opinionated, as despite putting in 8 months of effort to build this new website builder, which we're betting a lot on, where we differ from a closed walled garden of Substack, just to go back to that piece, is you can use Squarespace or WordPress or any website that you want and integrate directly into Beehive as well. So we are firmly pro user in the sense of flexibility and autonomy to choose what tech stack you want. And we play nicely with all of the different website platforms. Whereas a more restricting ecosystem like Substack, for example, is you have to build within their walled garden and you don't have access to the other third-party tools that are available on the internet. And so that's just a point of contrast to call out, that if you want to hire this WordPress developer to build the most beautiful website and don't want to wait for us, that's perfectly fine, encouraged, and possible using our platform.
Amazing. Sick. So you guys are almost competing more with Automatic and WordPress than you are really Substack.
We have a lot of competitors. I mean, it's a super crowded space, right? Like if you create content on the internet, whether you do it Medium, whether you do it WordPress, whether you do it independent, we are trying to replace a lot of those, but we're also playing friendly with all of them, and we can integrate whichever way you want.
Remember, Phil, they're not a platform in the classic Web 2 sense of way, so they therefore theoretically have to compete with everyone. They have to either build, buy, or contain themselves to markets where they can build a business, right? So we are out of the era of, that is incorrect. 70% of all VC money was in the last year was raised by 10 funds. So we are not out of the era of overfunding, but the VCs have moved on to different types of products, not platforms. They've moved on to the bright, shiny object of blockchains and AI. But you cannot go do what you did in Web 2. You have to have a business before you can land and expand. But and Michael, to your point on GoDaddy's at all-time highs. So buying a web domain, GoDaddy is the Berkshire Hathaway real estate arm of the web, right? Like GDDY goes up every day right now because they're taking tolls on all this. So creators are booming the domain space because people, once they realize they have to own their own domain, again, to quote Seinfeld, they got to go back to square one and figure out how to wire the world for them. They can't rely on Facebook to wire the world for them. That was the misdirection. I'll just Howard Lindzon at Facebook, Howard Lindzon at Twitter. Ben's probably been through this with his young generation of friends where they're just getting shadow banned and content rated. And it's very frustrating for that generation, but they won't cry. They're going to move on like Ben's doing. They're going to own their own domain. Comedians, we made an investment in Punch Up. Comedians are doing this.
And GoDaddy's a $30 billion market cap at a 16 multiple. So it tells
and you know what? You know what has
a
to
lot
happen
there.
at that company every day? Nothing. There's probably 2 employees at that company. So again, like what's old is new.
Are we whistling past the graveyard on YouTube also? Because really, YouTube's doing the same thing, Tyler, in a way that Twitter,
you'd be. People are so bullish on YouTube when you read like Mr. Beast's whole philosophy on like going all in, and as smart as he is, and knowing how concentrated he is in YouTube to say that is the future. I'm actually not a huge YouTube person. I'm one of the few people who don't spend a ton of time on YouTube, but the younger generation spends hours per day on YouTube.
Let's quickly talk about
YouTube. Is basically, I mean, this week they said they're going, their biggest platform is the TV. People are
YouTube isn't
moving
YouTube,
in
YouTube
droves.
is TV. Ben, where are you with YouTube? Because you live on it.
Oh, me?
Ben.
Ben.
You're on mute. He's on mute. We finally gave him a chance. You're on mute.
Mute.
There we go. Sorry about that.
You must do this podcast stuff a little bit more.
It's like Ralph Malph in Happy Days when he's wearing his corduroys under his workout pants. All right, go ahead, Ben.
I'm very frustrated by YouTube. I consider myself like late to the YouTube game. Because gone are the days when you could get, these days, like 1 million views on YouTube is 20 million views on YouTube 10 years ago. It's just a lot more spread out. It's a lot more, there's way more creators on there uploading stuff all the time. It's a lot more competitive. We're constantly up against the algorithm. And every single week when I put out an episode, I'm stressing about what the thumbnail is going to be, what the title is going to be, whether people are going to click it, why aren't they if they aren't, okay, why are they if they are? And I personally don't know, because that's our like number one focus is YouTube. Yep. We publish on Spotify, we publish on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else, but video, it's all YouTube. I don't, and we've started to delve into live streaming. We're not even thinking about doing Twitch. We are staying within the YouTube ecosystem because it's easier. We've already got our entire subscriber base there. If the question is whether anybody's going to come and usurp or eat their lunch, from where I sit, no. I mean, if anything, like we're going to start publishing video on Spotify. Obviously, that only applies to podcasts. As for just regular old videos, sketches, vlogs, things like that, it's just as, I mean, people have always bitched about YouTube and stuff and the ecosystem and whatever they're doing. And there are arbitrary rules that change from time to time without anybody knowing why all of a sudden am I shadow banned, whatever. I just don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, let's in that world, let's talk about it quickly, right? Like I'm late to YouTube, so I'm 59, and I would say it's been about a year since I went down the YouTube TV rabbit hole, and never. It first of all made it easy to leave Twitter and everything else on my mobile app, right? Because I can actually listen to the people that I'm interested in, lean back, and comedians, politics, but mostly comedians, golf, stocks, the stuff I just was breaking up my time for during the day and getting nothing done. Now I can lean back and watch it. But it doesn't change the fact, Ben, that you and Emil or you yourself should be moving your followers to an email based platform, because you don't have someone that you can transact with truly until you can reach out to them, assuming your email gets delivered, and can ask them for something. Right. And that's what Klaviyo is showing. That's what Beehive is showing. You need to subtly or forcefully start a weekly newsletter where your YouTube followers can actually hear directly from you and not have to trust the YouTube subscribe button. Until creators do this, and comedians have started first, and it's like a landslide. Political writers have done this on the free press with Substack. I think that's a mistake. They're going to be sorry they did Substack, but it was a great idea by Barry Weiss to have their tech built out. So Ben, the faster you move your audience to, even if it's just 1,000 people, that's way better than you were before you started. A very low friction way, very low friction way for you to talk to your customers.
It's something that we've aspired to do for a while, because there's always topics that we inevitably can't get to, because
or links, right? Or links that you can share with your readers that build more trust. All right, exactly. Michael, go ahead.
I just Ben, I feel your pain on the power of the algorithm, right? In terms of YouTube, etc. The reality is, in the 21st century, and we're just getting started, we are going from 20th century world gated by people and organizations to world gated by algorithms. You know, whether you're a YouTube subscriber, you're governed by algorithms. If you're a Uber driver, you're gated by algorithms. You're TikTok, you're gated by algorithms. This is just the reality of where we are. The systems, the algorithms, the companies are going to compete with each other by potentially giving us more transparency on how their algos work and more personalization. But this notion of algorithms, we're not getting away from it. If anything, AI is going to accelerate it exponentially in dramatic across every platform. So algos by themselves, we have to learn to live with them, and we have to learn to figure out how the markets can compete with algos against each other. And that's going to be the opportunity and salvation for people, everybody that wants a voice on the internet.
Right. Our struggle is getting ourselves plugged into the right part of the algorithm. I'm all for. I mean,
that's not going to change. That's not going to change. What can change
right.
is you delivering emails to your customers to remind them of your show, to remind them of special guests, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, because you can't rely on YouTube, people clicking the notification bell so that they actually get notified when we publish.
That's good for YouTube. That's not so much good for you. Remember that. That's good for the algo, not good for you. All right. Should we switch up subjects to AI, because AI is what Mike just led in, or go ahead?
Let's go. Let's talk about AI. Let's just talk about Broadcom. We got Michael here. We just have to ask you. I mean, Broadcom seems like it's now emerging at a next level of public awareness after last week, and crossing $1 trillion, having, blowout earnings, crossing $1 trillion. So, Michael, why don't you just take us through what's going on there and sort of, where we're at into 2025?
It's been a really interesting year, and particularly last few months, where big cap technology companies that have been around for decades are now coming into their AI own. So obviously NVIDIA, 31 years old, overnight success in the last 2 years, going from sub $500 million to $3.5 trillion. Broadcom is in this bucket. It's a company that was created in the 90s, gone through several incarnations. A semiconductor company, then became a software infrastructure company, multiple incarnations. And just in the last 2 or 3 years, they do all sorts of semiconductors, et cetera. But the reason the stock is up 20, 25, 30%, depending on how you count over the last 2 or 3 trading days, is that all of a sudden people have said, oh my God, Broadcom is the company of choice that companies like Meta, Google, Apple, OpenAI are all going to create what are called custom GPUs. In the Broadcom's case, they're XPUs. I wrote about this yesterday on Broadcom, if you want to take a look. But all of a sudden, people are saying, NVIDIA, there is no second choice. NVIDIA, I think, still is in the catbird seat for AI GPUs for the next 3 or 4 years minimum because of their hardware and their CUDA software. Broadcom is the company that most of the big companies that have billions to spend are going to develop custom chips, GPUs, XPUs, etc., that will be made ultimately by people like TSMC, etc. But Broadcom is basically the vendor of choice, and that's what came through in their quarter just released on Friday. And so it's become the current name that everyone got excited about. There was some reallocation institutionally, passive funds, active funds, etc. So the stocks had a quite the run, and it became the 8th trillion-dollar cap company in the United States. And you know, it's also a testament to the U.S. We talk about U.S. versus China and U.S. versus the world. You know, the U.S. is actually in a pretty good place where we can have 8+ companies now that are $1 trillion, 13 figures in terms of the AI boom. So I continue to kind of view that we are very much in the early days of what I call the mainframe stage of the AI tech wave. Companies like Broadcom. I wrote about Dell, which is a $100 billion company, premium provider of storage solutions for the internet. Was another one that's gone up a lot in the last couple of days. All these tech companies that have been around 30, 40 years. Dell, you know, was when Goldman, we took it public in 1988. They're now being discovered as AI companies because they have an AI tailwind and they're getting on a head-on steam on the stuff. And Broadcom is absolutely in this bucket, and they've got their time under the sun. They had some political issues as well. They had moved the headquarters to Singapore, moved it back to the U.S. after our president-elect Trump made some noises. The CEO got his picture taken with Donald Trump, and so now Broadcom also has some political tailwinds from an AI point of view going into the new administration. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Is it like the old days that was like Intel and then AMD was the smaller company that they were competing with? And now it's like NVIDIA is the Intel and Broadcom is the AMD?
Broadcom is potentially an AMD. The reason I say that is because Broadcom is again, they help design these next generation chips for the Metas and the Apples of the world, but it's not a you know, every time I buy a PC, I get an Intel chip or a AMD chip. It's for Apple to decide, Meta to decide how many chips, and then, you know, after a certain amount of chips, Apple is also, for instance, working with Amazon and their Trainium chips. They were on Amazon's AWS developer conference just 2 weeks ago on stage saying, we're also going to be building chips using Amazon with their Trainium chips. So all of the big companies are diversifying their chips that they have, but it's just the infrastructure. So your point is totally right, Phil. The AMD is really the backup for NVIDIA for people who want chips in their PCs for local AI processing, and AMD is also trying to get into the inference market for chips. So AMD is an option. ARM is another company that's an option because a lot of the mobile chips are based on ARM templates. And then Broadcom is now the third chip company that's been recognized as a potential alternative to NVIDIA chip infrastructure. The market is so big that there's enough room for all of them. This is not a binary zero-sum game, and it won't be that way, I don't think, Phil, for at least 2 to 3 years, because we're just barely gotten started in terms of the kinds of things we're going to need these chips to do AI computations for. We've not gotten started. So all three of them, AMD, ARM, Broadcom, all of them are now in the. I'd also throw in Qualcomm, because Qualcomm is also a big player in mobile chips for smartphones and so on. So that's another one I would, for local AI processing, I would put in the bucket.
But with Google launching and crossing $200 a share and 2.5 trillion, I still feel like people underestimate Google, right? Like they released that. I don't know if it's true. It seems like the source was true of them against Sora, you know, with the guy cutting a tomato. And I think you can clearly see it's not about who gets there first, right? I don't think it's the first one wins. I think this is a game of like the early adopters are there, but the ma and pa's aren't there. And the ma and pa's, when they switch, they're going to need really good stuff, right? Like the OpenAI wins the first 3 innings, let's call it, or 2 innings. But this is a 9-inning game. In a 9-inning game, when Google owns and Apple own the way you enter this, the vehicle that enters it, and maybe Facebook with glasses. Tyler, what are you seeing as someone deploying AI, both as a company with a lot of employees and with millions of or hundreds of thousands of customers?
Yeah, I think we're taking an extra look now and trying to determine the best ways to deploy AI internally to just make our processes more efficient, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where the biggest use case and upside is for us is rather than having to hire 3 to 4 people to do a certain task, can we have one person spend half their time training an AI model to do that exact task, anything that's repetitive, data-driven, etc. So that's like what interests me the most right now. We have some generative AI in the platform. I think it's still fairly early for that. It also kind of goes in the face of having writers to create content. I have noticed with my newsletter as of late, like when I get stuck on a sentence, I'll just put my half-baked sentence into ChatGPT and tell it to fix it a few times. And like it'll eventually spit out a much worse version of what I want, but better worded. And then I'll like tweak it a bit after that. So I do think there's a place for like writing tools and assistants that we could probably go a bit deeper on like the creator side of things. But mostly for me, it's just what are the laborious tasks that we're doing over and over again, and how can we augment that with AI internally? That excites me a lot more than hiring a ton of people.
Yeah, at StockTouch, we hired one person to go through every system and streamline and figure out how we can deploy AI. Exactly. So you got to, even if that's wrong, we're starting with that, Michael and Tyler, just to say, hey, that's your job, is talk to everybody at the company and let's know every product and make sure we're streamlining. And then we can get better as a company. I know that my day-to-day job, as someone doesn't have a secretary or anything, but I do have, a couple chief of staffs, which are beyond being secretaries. Obviously, there's got to be a way to 10x even the chief of staffs right now. So it is a very exciting time for productivity for people that want to be productive, right? Even if you don't want to be productive, you'll be more productive. But I think those that want to be productive, this is the ultimate era, because you've got all this knowledge, like the death of 1,000 Substacks. Like if you're still gonna feed the machine and be dumb, we can't help you. Like if you still don't know how Facebook works, then you'll never know. You're just sloppy, and that's just the path you've chosen, and that's why Facebook's a Magnificent Seven. That's why people still get Wells Fargo statements delivered in the mail still. So there is going to be that customer, but for those that want to get better, this is the moment. Michael, oh, you're on mute.
Viewed too much in a
we should have called the podcast.
Go ahead.
I know. Sorry, I have a microphone where you just say if you breathe on it, it goes mute. Google is still viewed in a defensive crouch on AI, and it's incorrect in my view. It's Google is the only one that owns, other than Apple, the full stack. They make their chips. We talked about Broadcom. Google has their own thing called TPUs that go up against Broadcom's XPUs and NVIDIA's GPUs. Google has distribution through 8 apps that are over 1 billion users around the world for Google services. Their Gemini 2.0 is very, very positively reviewed against OpenAI's best, and both companies are in a day-to-day competition this month going into Christmas, releasing one-up products like OpenAI did Sora for video. Google just announced Veo 2. They are in the game, and they are in it to win. So I think it's Google should be viewed as aggressive a player as any of the other companies. It's one of the few times we're seeing wide open competition amongst the big major big tech companies and a lot of startups, and it's not a zero-sum game. So I just wanted to underline Google being on a very strong. They had a bag full of announcements just 2 or 3 days ago, and developers around the world are reeling from the opportunity to build a lot of cool things with all of the technologies.
Well, the other signal you have, right? Like OpenAI with Microsoft. Great partnership for Microsoft. They weren't going to, Satya wasn't going to build this. He saw it. He paid up. He can pay up. Market's given him cover to do that, and he's done it beautifully. But remember, this is a long game. What did Elon Musk just announce? And he does announce a lot of stuff that doesn't happen, but he's very serious about email. Why? Because that's where people live.
Yeah.
Productivity people, if they're not in Outlook, which I don't know how, there is a huge market in Outlook. If you're not in Outlook, you're in Gmail, right? And Elon understands and OpenAI doesn't have to play this game because of Outlook, which also affects OpenAI's valuation in the end, that if I live in email, then and Howard Lindzon may not need to help writing his emails, but my son sure does, my wife sure does, and they already are living with Google AI, Gmail AI, right? And this goes to the GoDaddy chart. If you look at GoDaddy, the basic of setting up on the internet is at an all-time high. And the basics that Google has, Android, email, YouTube, maps.
We got that Google chart. We put that Google chart on.
They are 10 GoDaddies in one. So even if you don't think that they are executing well, they have 10 GoDaddies. And so I expect people to realize this over time, right? Because it's fun to try and pick the next Google. But sometimes, as we've learned, Google is the next Google. So again, I think it plays catch up. Again, a lot of this depends on just the market itself. But if you look at that launch of VO2 or whatever they call it versus Sora, this is like fucking day one still, or inning 3. So very exciting time. But Elon announcing Xmail, there's bigger reason behind that than just tweeting. He needs daily interaction. And I think my biggest prediction, Phil, even though it's not a prediction show, is that XAI rolls in Twitter at some point next year, just to clean up what people think about Twitter and it as a business model. It'll cleanly be like when they rolled first Solar City into his other companies. So with XAI already at 50 billion, it's a foregone conclusion that at higher valuation than Twitter was bought for, with probably the same investors from Qatar to Andreessen. That seems to be the one thing that for sure will happen next year. But anyways, that's Google. Really, really, that's AI. Go ahead, Phil.
Speaking of Elon and Tesla, Ben.
Yes.
Tesla, Elon. We got the Tesla chart here. What's your take?
I take that breath because I am an Elon fucking hater. All right. And look, is he richer than me? Yeah. Has he done a lot more in his life than I have? Yeah. That doesn't mean that I still can't find him to be the most annoying. I'm just fucking tired of it. I'm tired of opening up Twitter every day and his dog shit tweets are at the top of my algorithm talking about, I get it, man. You're building a rocket. I get it. Starship is huge. I get it. Starship, we're going to go to Mars. Shut the fuck up already. God damn. I'm just tired of this shit. And every day he's making more money. Every day the stock goes higher. And I have a weird conspiracy theory, and this is me coming from ignorance. But when you're worth $400 billion, is it not within the realm of possibility that you could have offshore accounts or have people trading the stock on your behalf, manipulating it? I mean, it really doesn't take that much in options flows to keep. Sorry, my dog is really in my shit right now.
All right.
I mean, for a guy who's been so obsessed with short sellers, who, by the way, he should be commending, because without the short sellers squeezing his stock higher, he wouldn't be worth what he is today. Like also, what an immature way to view the markets, that people shorting your stock must believe that you are, they don't believe in you. Shut the fuck up. Do you not know how markets, that without short selling, It's the yin and yang, dipshit. Like, get real. And I'm sorry, I'm much more articulate than this usually. But yeah, I just have this conspiratorial mindset that the richer he gets, the more he's able to manipulate his own stock higher to continue. I mean, that's what I would do if I were worth $400 billion and I'm
What
watching.
you would have to do. You got to understand.
Oh, yeah.
The punishment is his job, right? His whole daily life it's like someone who goes to the circus and spins plates. This is why you shouldn't be upset. Because first of all, let me just help you here. Turn Twitter off. Here's what you will miss. Here's what you will miss. And I say this for someone who is addicted to Twitter app and should have been on YouTube, right? Like, at least you're on YouTube. If you haven't started your creator and don't have a Beehive and aren't thinking about YouTube, you're really thinking about everything wrong.
But Howard, you and I were on Twitter first.
I know, but Elon wasn't. So we beat him to it. Okay. We beat many people to Twitter. Guess what? That bar is not cool anymore. It's happened throughout your whole life, Ben. The fact that you are going to that bar and being upset, you have to flip this on Elon. This is his punishment, that he has to wake up every day telling a story that is a really hard story to tell.
That's a good point.
And same with, you have to realize that, like, their punishment is the wealth that they have. They've gone beyond where money makes you happy. They've gone to where money now is you are a slave to telling the story. And that's the stock market. What's great about the stock market is you don't even have to look at it. You can mute Elon Musk, trust me, and nothing changes on Twitter. It won't get better so much, but you can solve these problems. So as someone who's young, and I have to tell my daughter all this, we have to rearrange our wiring and live our lives, because they're not going to change. That drum beat's only going to get louder. The good news is if you put a few blocks up, you don't even know it exists in the real world.
That's
right?
true.
Farcoin's doing a lot better than Tesla is. And there's quantum chip stocks, right? Or there's quantum stocks that have been trending for, and you were in a couple of them, Ben.
Yeah.
That quantum's 30 years away, according to Mike, or 20 years away, and stocks are up thousands of %. So this game is going to go on. I think that the smartest thing to do is to just focus not on the person, but on what you can control. But anyways, or I think it's funny that you're this upset, because I used to be this upset about Best Buy. Best Buy was my Elon Musk. That was a criminal, that continues to be a criminal organization. And
Best Buy?
Best Buy is like the most corrupt retailer.
I don't think I've heard this one, Howard.
Yeah.
BBY?
BBY, man. If you were alive in the 90s, you hated this company.
I was a Circuit City guy.
Well, I'm saying them in Circuit City and CompUSA, they controlled you, because if you had a product that had to get to market, you had to go kiss the ass of a Best Buy buyer, and they were making 60 grand a year, and they controlled all distribution. So you think it's bad now. Imagine what it was like trying to sling product in the 90s in the tech industry. Egghead, Electron, they're all gone. And Elon knows that if he doesn't play this game properly, he'll be a footnote. Yeah. So again, he's playing the game. You are upset at the wrong player.
I'm also just, I hear what you're saying. I unfortunately have to kind of have him unmuted because he is so relevant to especially the topics that we cover on our show. But it's more just like, I can't believe that a guy with that much wealth can still be that cringy and immature and just completely lacking in self-awareness. It's mind-boggling. And also,
hands up if someone has a dad that reminds him of Elon Musk. Hands up. Nobody, just 3 out of 6. So okay, we have good dads, but
my dad was a sweetheart.
Honestly, 5 out of 6 of us have cringy dads. That's Elon Musk.
It's just wild.
Money doesn't buy class.
Yeah. And I'm not like, I don't mean to sound all like socialist, communist or whatever, but I really wonder at what point we just as a society, as a country, as a culture, ask ourselves honestly, how much is too much? Like,
it already is.
$400 billion is, he's literally untouchable. He can do anything he wants. He can't get fined. Nothing can even come close. He owns and controls the vast majority of Earth's satellites. He's fully able to do and influence whatever he wants
until he's dead.
But everybody, all the tech accelerationists, if you dare speak against him, cry, "Oh, you're decel, you're fucking, you're just jealous, whatever." It's like, no, you've had your head so far up Elon's ass that you've gotten used to the smell, and I implore you to try to squeeze it out and look at reality for what it is. Are we okay with a guy like this having this much unchecked influence, power, you name it? It really does sometimes make me I really just like worry. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Who is this guy that he gets to dictate our collective future according to his whims, his views, his worldview? I mean, it's fucking what I hope. All I can be is optimistic that he's a good actor and not a bad
And Ben
actor.
hasn't even told us what he
think your
thinks
hair
about
is
Tesla.
doing well considering your worries, so I think you should be grateful.
True.
But again, I would urge you as a young person to not worry about this. The world has chosen him over Pelosi. I mean, I'd rather have him than
Don't get me
Pelosi and
started on
Schumer.
her.
So that's what I'm saying. Like the world has some bad choices, and the world will fix this as well. Michael, last word on this?
No, I was just going to say, and Ben hasn't even told us what he thinks about Tesla.
Oh, Tesla to the fucking moon, Michael. Oh, baby. You know, you're gonna have 5 robots, and you're gonna have 5 of them.
Yeah. Here's what I did. You index, like Phil said, like I said, even though I won't own Tesla myself, it's 7% of my portfolio, right? Like, again, it's not illegal to ride a trend.
Of course.
It's cringy at some points, but it's not illegal. Will I personally, buy Tesla? No. Will I buy the car? No. So I think you can do 2 things, but the world is wired in a way that you can't vote with your wallet right now. It's very hard to vote with your wallet. And that's an index world. It's very hard to truly vote with your wallet. There's been tons of startups that said you could. They're littered in graveyards of fintech startups that said, we will help you choose. Okay. The world is telling you something. Momentum is telling you something. Is stay out of the way of this trade, right? Because Tesla is moon and robots are coming and storytelling matters.
Absolutely.
And access to capital matters, and having and being right in the past matters, and having a cult matters, and owning your own domain matters, blah, blah, blah. And Elon has executed on all these things, and that's what he's doing.
You can't
It's gonna
deny
take
that.
a very long time. Now, remember, this unravels one day with either you wake up and he Michael Jacksons himself, or he gets United Healthcare. No, both are the only ways. And believe me, he has to think about these things every day. So his punishment is the job. All right, Phil, what's next?
So we're going to go on to Riley Rosebee. What's up, Riley? Trends with no friends. Before we do it, though, what's up, buddy? Before we do it, Tyler, I got a question for you. Off of the Twitter, Tom Maluli asks, and he's, by the way, great guy, old school financial advisor down on the Jersey Shore. He says, Phil, what's to stop Beehive or any other like aggregator publisher from becoming a future Substack? So what differentiates you or checks you have in place that will stop you from pulling a Substack? And it makes me think, I still hate Twitter from fucking destroying TwitPic. Like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And they basically just were like, okay, you can't use the API anymore. TwitPic was awesome, by the way. And so what differentiates you guys structurally from being able to say, okay, now that we're so big, we're just going to start being dicks?
Yeah, I mean, he was wrong when he described us as an aggregator, and that's like kind of where it starts and ends. We don't aggregate content. We are the Shopify as to Substack being an Amazon. When you shop at Amazon, you don't seek a specific brand. You kind of just go through the app, through the website. They own the communication. They send you in their Amazon box. They send the receipts and everything else. Amazon is the destination, similar to Substack is trying to become the destination of an application that you log into, and they'll promote all of the content, insidiously promoting the content that they make the most money from, because that's where they are most incentivized to drive people. We don't aggregate content. We are the Shopify of email newsletters. We have Howard has his own newsletter. that doesn't interfere. We don't interject Howard's readers and say, oh, you're reading Howard's newsletter. Why don't you check out Tyler's and Riley's and Phil's newsletter as well? Howard owns his distribution. We are the pipes and distribution of being able to communicate with your audience. We are not an aggregator. And that's like where we've drawn the line historically and don't have any plans to become one.
Yeah, I will have to say this is that part that's both exciting and frustrating, right? As someone who writes every day and looks at my numbers and cares, like, what am I supposed to care about, right? I care about my open rate because those are the people that, and since I write every day to have a 50% open rate, it doesn't matter to me the numbers, right? I know I'd love to have, I know there's, if I have 20,000 opens, should it be 50,000? Yes, but that's still got to be on me and figuring out another way to reach them. I'm not, Tyler's job to not create this false signal is to not say if you like Howard or so. I mean, I would love to have bigger vanity metrics, and I think that's going to be Beehive's, story to tell. Is like, if you come to Beehive, don't expect magic in terms of your followers are going to look like this guy's chart.
Yeah, I would say there is a difference between being an aggregator and having network effects, right? So we don't play aggregator. We don't curate who we think is the top 10 finance newsletter or the top 10 sports writers, because we're not playing editorial, right? But there is network effects built into the ecosystem that we've created where I can voluntarily recommend Howard's newsletter. And then we also have a boost feature where most of the top newsletters pay some level for paid acquisition to reach new readers. And so you can say, I'm willing to pay $2 per subscriber, and the tens of thousands of newsletters in our ecosystem can apply to promote your newsletter and get paid $2 per lead. So we do have network effects that are opt-in and they aren't editorial driven, but it does allow you to take advantage of the 350 million unique readers within our ecosystem, and you can build those connections. So we do help you grow.
And you guys are building out an ad network that is just so insane. Like I haven't done it yet, but in 25 I will. But I get emails from Beehive saying, "Hey, Huel or even Nike wants to advertise on your newsletter." It's sick.
Yeah. So that when Michael asked earlier, like the two things, well, what excites me the most about the roadmap? There's two. One is the website builder, which is coming in January. The second is the ad network. And so right now we're paying about roughly $1 million every single month to different publishers in the platform. And that's from the thesis of Substack shows the only way to monetize your audience is via paid subscription. And we're going to take 10% of everything you earn. We allow you to offer paid subscriptions. We do not take 10% of your earnings, but that is a viable way to make money if you are Barry Weiss, if you are Ben Thompson, if you have an audience and create content that warrants charging for. But the large majority of content creators and the way that people have made money on the internet for decades has been via ads. The downside of ads, especially when you're doing native ad placements, is it's a lot of manual work to connect with these brands, to sell them on your audience, on your data, do the copywriting, do the testing, the invoicing, etc. So because we have 2.5 billion impressions per month, we can aggregate advertisers like HubSpot, Netflix, Roku, Nike, like the who's who of like the advertisers with very, very deep pockets, because they want to get in front of these niche audiences like Phil's newsletter or like Howard's newsletter. And so as a publisher on our platform, with 2 clicks and no relationship to any of these brands, you can have your newsletter sponsored by Nike and get paid anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s without having to do any work. And I think that is it is like the YouTube model in an extent, but with the exception of you actually have control over what the advertiser is showing in your newsletter versus YouTube is just going to place programmatic ads on your video. But there are parallels, I'd say, between monetization on YouTube and what we're looking to build with the Beehive ad network.
Thanks, Tyler. Okay, beautiful. Okay, let's do Trends with No Friends. Riley, you got a couple. There's the Trends with No Friends.
Well, we're going to look at a few different themes here. So the first one that I want to look at is the Trends with No Friends. And we're just going to take a look at Argentina kind of as a whole to begin. So we've been talking about Argentina on the podcast, seems like all year. And these are all the Argentinian ADRs that are trading in the US with over $1 billion market cap. And you can see in the second column on the far right there, those are the follower counts. So none of the stocks from Argentina have over 2,000 followers. And you can see the year-to-date performance on the far right end, absolutely monster. I mean, I texted you this morning, Phil, like who had on their bingo card a regional bank from Argentina would outperform Bitcoin. So
I mean, this
go ahead,
is a
Howard.
fascinating story because Trends with No Friends is such a unique use case of our data in that it's kind of opposite of how you would think about our data, right? It's reverse relative strength, right? Meme coins have all, listen, they're the president of Argentina, or whatever they call him, of Argentina, is a storyteller, much like Elon Musk, and he has lifted the country up on his back, telling kind of a mix of Palantir, a mix of Elon Musk, and a mix of Sam Altman, and a mix of Goldman Sachs, and the people that have listened to him, right? The people that have followed him and followed Price have been the big winners here, right? We've had this what I call degenerate economy, and Argentina's just gone back to being a basic economy. And look at the rewards, or is chosen at least verbally and storytelling wise to be a basic economy, not a degenerate economy. And look at the returns here. And if they really can execute on some of the things he talks about leading Argentina, then we're in the early days of, this is a big LATAM country. So, Michael, you've probably seen this before out of LATAM. Is there something here that like makes sense, or is it all just, storytelling?
It's majority storytelling. I mean, as you rightly pointed out, the current leader has a huge following, Elon style around the world, especially in Silicon Valley of late. And he's done a masterful story. His execution is midway through. The jury's out. If you look at the, just the numbers of what he's been able to accomplish from an economy point of view. But right now, the momentum is pro his moves in the Argentine marketplace, which is what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing too, Howard, you talked about kind of just a basic boring economy. If you look at the industries within these stocks, and like the ones that are up the most are all these regional banks. I mean, even this travel services, which we kind of talked about as being akin to MMYT, it hasn't performed as some of these regional banks. So let's go to that next chart though, because this is going to be the Argentina ETF. We could see just the relative strength, and then we'll look at one of the regional banks. We touched on it yesterday in Trends with No Friends. If we can go to that next chart, Kiki. Yeah, so this is Banco BBVA Argentina. They had news that the country exited a recession, and the stock was up almost 12%. But the real kicker here, if we zoom out, this stock is breaking out of a 30-year base. So I hear you, Michael, on like a lot of storytelling, but I don't know if it sticks this landing on this 30-year base. I feel like there's some real material changes that are occurring within the country.
That chart is sick, dude.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then Howard, I know you said you wanted some trends with too many friends. So I got a couple absolutely disgusting ones for you.
Okay.
The first one is going to be Tilray. The pot stock just continues to drop. 151,000 followers on StockTwits and complete turd. And then Phil's favorite stock, Beyond Meat, the fake meat producer, almost 90,000
always an
followers.
insult. Look at that, 100. This is the lesson here, people, is, and I think Tesla. This is why Elon Musk is Elon Musk. He's the opposite. He has a trend with too many friends, and the stock keeps going higher. It's very rare to see such a crowded stock do well, and I think this is a testimony to him making a huge bet on Donald Trump, right? Risking the he kind of risked the company. That's why the stock kind of exploded after the election, because the jury was out until that bet was won. Whereas Beyond Meat was betting on one product, and the product sucked, right? Tilray was betting on weed, and weed is endless supply. And there's nothing to differentiate one weed company from the next. So be careful of trends with too many friends. Almost more importantly is finding new trends, is staying out of trends that have too many people that believe that don't have a product that is actually working.
Bitcoin.
And,
I didn't say anything.
But you were implying. All right, Phil, anything else? And we'll let everybody go.
That's it. We're gonna. We as usual. There's things we didn't get to, but I mean, we're 75 minutes in, so we'll let everybody go. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. Great discussion. Ben, mwah, love you, bro. Thank you for coming in and getting all riled up on the whole Elon Musk thing. Is beautiful.
And let me know if you buy indexes so I can take a little off the table. I don't think today's the day to buy the index, but it's never a bad day if you intend to continue to buy it.
Buy low cost, broad market ETFs and hold that forever. And
all I heard was Fartcoin.
Fartcoin is ripping, by the way.
Doesn't mean you have to own it. You can laugh.
Fartcoin is ripping.
I've made like 30 grand on the damn thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, God. And you're yelling at Elon. I love it. That's so perfect. Yeah. That's so perfect.
It's like a perfect meme coin because it like farting is funny.
He's so upset about Elon, but he's trading Fartcoin. There you go.
Hey, it's like you said. I'm not one to, I will, as much as I hate it, which I do, I'm still going to participate.
All right.
Yeah. Did you buy Tesla?
I have traded it. I did not buy it after the election. I'm such an idiot.
Okay. Tyler, do you own any stocks? Do you do anything, or you just have no time?
Index funds, don't think about it.
Smart man.
All right, gentlemen. Happy New Year. We will see everybody in the new year.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and Happy New Year.
Adios, guys.
See y'all.
See you, gentlemen.